Hi. So I'm like incredibly excited about this panel because I feel like this is something that we've been dancing around for a while, this idea of boundaries and joy and how do we get more of it. Before I jump in, I want to introduce all these magical women who I know, all of them well, and have worked with all of them in various capacities.
Can you hear it properly, folks?
Everybody hear okay?
Move forward if you don't, please. Thanks. Sorry.
Chantal Forde. So Chantal's been part of this from the very beginning. She's part of our committee to help build this whole conference. She's a writer, a director, an educator, a performer, super passionate about inspiring the next generation of artists. She, alongside her private coaching, she's faculty at Sheridan College. She's an instructor at Center Stage Theatre School and teaches workshops at Shadowpath Theatre Productions. Thank you, Chantal, for being here. This is Tracey Erin Smith, everyone. Tracey is an internationally award-winning teacher, solo performer, theater director, TV creator, two-time CSA nominee, the author of Flying Solo, Your Story on Stage. She's the driver of Solo Theater, and she's leading workshops in New York, Tel Aviv, which is so cool, San Francisco, Vancouver, and the UK. Thank you so much, Tracey, for being here. You guys are supposed to be in the this is Siobhan Richardson. Siobhan Richardson. So part of all our panels has done many workshops for AACE because she's a highly versatile human being. She's a sought-after intimacy coach, a fight director, an educator, but she's also an incredible performer. She was just doing Cyrano, were you in Edmonton? Wow, amazing. She's recognized worldwide as an expert in intimacy and has introduced intimacy artists around the world. She was a founder of the Intimacy Direction, and she's just an incredible educator at various and multiple institutions across the country. So thank you, Siobhan, for being here with us. This is Meredith McGeachie, my acting coach. She's an award-winning actor who's worked extensively on stage and in film. She was out in BC for many years and then came back to us, thank God. No shade to BC folks have. She's worked throughout Canada and the US as on multiple shows, many famous ones. She's been a teacher and a coach for more than 20 years. Her passion is working with actors, helping them learn to trust themselves, gain confidence, and discover who they are as artists. She's the founder of MAP Actors, where I go to school. And I'm really grateful you're here. Thank you. Okay, that's the people. So we called this panel Finding Joy, Teaching Acting with Boundaries and Heart, because I think in this time of uncertainty, we've had lots and lots of conversations about creating brave spaces. We did a panel, like an online Zoom panel in 2024 called Creating Brave Spaces. It's our #1 Zoom streamed panel. It's had more hits than anything else on our YouTube channel. And I think because it resonates with people, that there's something bubbling up. And I was thinking about why is this happening? And I think it's because of the various movements that all happened at once. We had the Me Too movement, we had Black Lives, Indigenous lives, we had understanding gender inequity, equality, mental health, all that stuff happened at the same time. And so educators and administrators were scrambling to make safe spaces for everybody, to really make everything safe, like super antiseptic, and nobody would get hurt, and nobody would be hurt at any time by anyone, right? Including themselves. And I think what happened as a result of that is we kind of tried to make everything bulletproof, and that made us make spaces antiseptic to bravery and risk. And also, the problem with not having any bravery and risk is you also lose the joy. You lose the reason why you love it, because it's in expressing those things that you feel joy, right? So I think with all the focus on boundaries and triggers and safety, we lost the joy, and the joy of expressing the craft. So how do we get the joy back? Anyone want to help me?
I just, like, at the beginning of intimacy, so much of, because that was happening all at the same time as well.
Oh, yeah,
so a lot of what we were doing was how do we approach, I mean, it's the sexy intimacy part. Like it's allowed to be fun, and our human characters are hopefully having a moment of joyfulness with each other. So one of the first keys that really worked for me is, yes, absolutely, let's talk about boundaries. Let's say what's not welcome in this space. And then let's also turn our attention to the yes. So just like these walls are a boundary for this room, it doesn't mean we now have no space to play in. It just means we're actually clear on what that is. I can run with my eyes closed if I have a sense of where those walls are. So when I talk about consent, I like to talk about boundaries and parameters. And for me, parameters is that focus on the yes. So we can focus on what's the yes and of this moment, with an awareness of where those no's are, but it doesn't have to become our sole focus. And I think within this whole, like, absolutely necessary, what are the no's in this space? Our attention got a little co-opted by that. And part of our returning to yes is returning to, like, where is our playfulness? Corey Tasmanian, who's a wonderful artist and educator, she talks about what's on the table for play. So yes, we can talk about boundaries, and then that helps us to define what's on the table for play.
I love that.
Yes, thank you, Corey. I don't know if you're here, maybe you are.
What about you?
I was just thinking, I run a boundary conversation each day, and I do it as a part of a check-in to figure out how much of you emotionally is available and then how much of you physically is available, because honestly, entirely selfishly, I started it not because of trying to make a safe space, because I find I'm terrible when I want to do something, but my body doesn't let me. Like, I find my acting is bad. I can look back at performances that I wanted to be a badass and I wanted to be so good that I chose to say yes to everything, because the idea, my ego, the idea I had of myself was that I was going to be this badass, fearless person, but I wasn't fearless. I was fearful, and so I look at the work and I said the things and I did the things, but I wasn't embodied and I wasn't alive, and I regret that. So I started because I wanted to figure out how to make it interesting, how to make us alive, and I couldn't figure out how to be alive unless we had our body's permission, and so we had to earn our body's permission. So that's how I started it. But what actually occurs to me when I hear what you say, Siobhan, because I love it so much, is I also teach in London. I go once a year, and I have a beautiful community of artists that I get to work with there, and they train weekly, and I also teach their teacher. And so she taught me, so I brought my boundary system over with me, and then they sort of took it over and made their own version of it. And then they taught me this past year that they find that no one takes them up on it. So now instead of saying, these are my things, and I have a poster, and I have things that are my boundaries, so that I'm not comfortable teaching you if I can't figure out what you're doing with your hand around someone's neck. I can't tell if it's a cool stage combat move or if something terrible is about to happen. So I stop watching your acting and I start looking for safety for the room. And so that's not what you're hiring me for. My job is to watch your work and see if I can help you become more alive. So I have a list of things that I call my boundaries, not rules of the space, because that puts me in some sort of weird power position that I don't consent to. Like, I don't want that, so I have things that I need in order for us to collaborate together, for me to feel comfortable and focus on what I'm supposed to focus on. And then I ask you to sort of say each day what your things are. Anyway, in London, this wonderful teacher, Helene Maksud, she has taken my boundary list and added their own stuff, but she says, they say, I invite you to kiss me. I invite you to touch me, which is so different than, yes, you can touch my bum, versus I invite you to. I hope that you do touch my bum, and that's what comes up in this moment. And so I don't know, that's something that I'm now sort of working with and trying to invite people to actually mean it, as opposed to, I will not lose my mind if you X. And I also have a thing where I say, no reasons allowed. So no one can tell me, it's because I had tuna fish, otherwise I'd be okay if you kissed me, or I had a cold sore. I mean, I don't care what your reason is, and you don't need a reason. and your body doesn't need a reason, and you can't. When my daughter doesn't want to hug somebody when she was young, I didn't say it's just because she's nervous. I don't know why she doesn't want to hug you. I don't know if you smell bad. I don't know if you're scared. She's scared of you, but she doesn't need a reason to listen to what her body wants to do. And it made me nervous, and it made me uncomfortable, and that was still my job. And so I sort of think if we can think of our, I'm talking too much, but
No, it's good.
yeah. So I think if we can sort of think of like our job is to defend our bodies, and what we commit to, fully commit to it, and what we're not committing to, don't pretend you are. That's what I'm saying.
I love it. I've got some more questions for you later about that. But I want to hear from the Joy Machine. Tracey, Erin Smith.
Well, I start every session with touch my bum, and I'm kidding. I just say to
Oh my God.
I say to everyone who's there, touch my bum, and then
Look at the little paddywhack machine.
it's awesome. It's awesome.
And then yes and.
And then yes,
I think yes, and right on.
And I invite.
I made notes because I was there.
I love it.
So I think joy is a trickle down thing. And if I am the holder of the space, if I am the teacher of the class and the facilitator of people birthing work, so my specialty is people come into a room and then I help them share their personal stories and use what I call theatrical alchemy to then transform it into a one-person show. And we start each class with dancing. And I find that, when I join a group, I'm nervous. And when I'm leading, I'm less nervous. And so I find that with the dancing, it helps people get less in their head and more in their bodies. And that just helps at the beginning. And joy is expansive, right? And so in order for you to expand, there has to be trust. You have to know that someone will catch you. You have to know that taking risks is okay. And then I think joy can be found even in the shittiest experiences. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 25 years, and I have heard horrific stories. And sometimes exaggerating, like when you were at the low point of your life, exaggerating it helps it to, that's what comedy is. So you just exaggerate the joy and you exaggerate the grief, and then we find all kinds of magical things so that we're not doing damage to the audience. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those are a few things.
I love it. Chantal, you work with a lot of younger actors too. So what do you, and especially in school, in an institution, what are the kinds of things that you help those students express their joy or find their joy? I find those places can sometimes be really
Very
stressful,
wacky.
right?
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And there's pressure of
Marks and all this
grades,
stuff.
which is who cares? But yeah, there's a lot of pressure to succeed and because they're working, there's a sense of competition that is gross. Really, but there is, because they want to, they're new. Most of them, not all of them, they're new. So there's a fear of not being as good as classmates and whatnot. I don't know, for me, it's so much like, nobody starts this because it's smart. Nobody's like, what's going to be the smartest thing in the world? I'm going to be an artist. You do it because you love it, and there's joy and passion in it. And so I find that when it gets challenging for them, that it's like, but why are you here? What made you love it? What is the thing that you want to do? Why does this inspire you? So remembering what made you want to do it, and then also in the parts that feel really hard, sometimes joy isn't the word that comes to mind, right? When it's very dramatic, or you're dealing with you're saying the deepest, darkest moments, whether it's something that they're creating from real life or whether it's something that is in a script. But remembering that the joy is in the play and the feeling, the commitment and the exploration that's there is, while it's not a smile on your face joy, it's the excitement and that original seed that made you want to do it just kind of blossoms, and that's the joy of really committing and playing without fear.
Do you think that I feel like, and I've heard this a number of times from educators, that the feeling of students having sort of lost a bit of, that they're a bit more risk adverse than they used to be. And maybe that's because of all the safety stuff and all the stuff that happens. So, I mean, how do we create more freedom? How do we help them feel more free with boundaries?
I think they're more risk adverse.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you said that.
I think there's more anxiety.
Oh, maybe
That's prevalent. But risk adverse, I don't think that they are. I think that they are more able to speak about what's scary. And they're more able, there's a comfort in saying no that I sure didn't have. When I was in school, I was like, you don't say no, you just do it, no matter how bad it feels.
I love that. There's a comfort in saying no. Okay, that's really interesting. I've never heard it said
And I
that way
think,
before.
and I think there's that double-edged sword of that, where it's like, I can say no, so I'm going to say no, instead of knowing when it's okay to push and when it's not. So I don't think there's any more people that are like, absolutely not. I think it's just a different approach to the work, speaking from an institutional point of view. Like, when I was in school, it was very different. So now it's like, okay, so now that you can say no, we have to explore what that no means, as opposed to just do it and hope that you're not broken later.
I would say that like that's the part that I would say is the difference, is that there is this vocabulary around being able to say no. There's also, like, if we think of our, like, I learned this recently from Morgan Yamada. I love it. So we've talked about the green and the amber and the red zone. So for using like a stoplight system for boundaries. If we pair that with our ideas of comfortable and confident. So in my green zone, I'm comfortable and confident. In my yellow zone, I may not be comfortable, but I can still be confident. Like, I have enough info for that. In my red zone, and she did this whole somatic thing, if you imagine your red zone as like a clay wall, and as I approach that clay wall, I'm maybe neither comfortable nor confident, but touching the clay wall or digging into it a little bit does not equal harm. And I would say that the vocabulary that is helpful to learn and share is that going into the red zone does not equal harm. And I feel like that's paired with your idea of like they're really comfortable saying no, and sometimes they say no immediately upon a certain kind of discomfort. And the difficulty is with encountering discomfort, not
Any
necessarily
discomfort.
risk. Sometimes it's any discomfort, and it's also like, from what I understand culturally, like kids don't go to clubs and dance anymore because anything you do can be on the internet and can be judged.
Or you get sick, or you get
something
sick.
bad can happen to you.
Yeah.
Lots of bad things can happen, and also, so I'm throwing out 1,000 ideas. I hear from folks who are working with a lot of first years, for instance, that kids aren't playing the same way they used to, so they don't have the same approach to physical games and just like failing at games. And,
I used to teach that class, but
Well,
not no more.
So all of these things kind of come together with this, and I can understand why you call it risk averse. It's like, rather than calling it safe spaces, another colleague, Matthew Kennedy, she talks about risk aware spaces. Just to not say that no harm will ever come to anybody or nothing weird is ever going to happen, but that we go into this knowing that there's the risk of failing, there's the risk of doing something scary, there's the risk of doing something amazing. But as far as like the no, that's what I would say, is that red clay wall sometimes is like, it's electric. No, it's just clay. Sometimes it's like, now it's all over my hands and that sucks a little. But it's
But I'm
it's
not injured and I'm not impaired. What do you think, Mary?
Yeah, I definitely think there is a romanticized idea of what no means that is not to people's benefit. And so what I do there, because it drives me crazy, is I just won't play. So you get to say no, and you have to live with how that feels. So let's unpack it. It's not an emergency. Nothing is an emergency. So if you are able to know when your body's saying yes, know when your body's saying, I always use workouts as my best example because we believe we have external muscles. We understand that you can't attain art and you can't attain fitness. It's a practice, it's an experience as your body changes, things that you can do easily, become difficult, and then it may be easy again or not. I ran marathons. I couldn't run a marathon now if my life depended on it. I have a hip replacement, so my life is very different now than it was before. And what is my idea of fitness? What's my idea of myself? So all of that. And so I think when I say, oh, I can't work out at all because I hurt my hip or I don't feel well, I have to then deal with the consequences of what that means for me, and I need to think through, am I looking for an excuse, or can I create a relationship where I respect myself and my body and what it needs, and can I find a path forward that allows me to be inside my body and grow my muscles and all of that. So I say the same about our emotional body. We just don't give it any credit. And we think like enduring pain and discomfort is some sort of, or discomfort is my favorite word, as Jen knows right now. But enduring pain is some sort of like building muscles thing. So I would say that we're looking to create resilience inside of ourselves. And that means being uncomfortable, but that also means being able to articulate and stay inside of forward motion while bringing our body along. So you get to, and if part of that process is I'm going to say no, and I'm going to sit with that, what that feels like, great, let's do that. And I'm not mad at you. And how does that feel? Like, I am not mad, and you are the boss of your own experience and your own artistic trajectory. And if you can't stand up, I've had students come for weeks and months not being able to put any weight on their legs, not being able to touch or move or be pushed. I've worked with people up to a week before they delivered their child. We have had incredible physical changes that we've been able to make beautiful art with, because none of that is relevant as long as we've decided and committed to moving forward with the emotional experience. So if we can't touch, we can't touch. And how do we make that alive? If we can't walk, people can't walk. There are lots of people who have emotional conversations and have physical changes and limitations and temporary and permanent. So I'm excited by the challenge of trying to figure that out, and I think people's ownership over what's available to them is their responsibility, not mine.
That's the accountability piece that I have a real question about it. I mean, I think that there's something about how we've created antiseptic safe spaces. We've also taken the onus off the student to be accountable to their own body and their own process and their own growth,
their own agent.
Journey. And so how do we help turn that back now and say, okay, you are responsible for your boundaries. You are responsible for your triggers. You must be accountable, because only you can make a safe space. I can't actually make it safe for you. Only you can make it safe for yourself.
And neither can your intimacy coordinator.
And
Just saying.
neither can your...
Just saying.
No one
They
can.
facilitate you.
Absolutely no one
I
can.
say this in class all the time.
Yeah.
I can't promise you that missile will not come through this room at this moment. Like, I can't say what is going to happen. I can say we will not go any further than everybody agreeing to take care of themselves. We're going to make a deal where everybody in this room is taking care of themselves, what they need in order to feel the most free version of themselves, and we'll talk about it and we'll unpack it, but let's collectively take care of ourselves and make that agreement so that whatever happens inside of that room happens because everybody chooses it. And if you don't choose it, you won't do it. And that's simple. And there's no consequence to that.
And I've also seen in your class in particular that it changes within the scene. Like, somebody can stop in the scene and go, oh wow, I feel like my boundaries changed immediately. Like, I don't want to do that, and talks to Meredith, and they just change it within the scene because
we have a code, because you can think you want to be pushed, and then you can be pushed and go, oh, that doesn't, I don't want to be pushed again. That made me feel like I was off balance. I didn't expect it. I liked the idea of that, but I actually can't. And I would even say, because both people have feelings when that happens. So how we do that is we say at the beginning what we're okay with, and then if it changes, they just change it through me. Because one of the most exciting things, and I never want to take this away, is if Jen and I are having a fight, so I'm going to push her, and she's going to say, don't push me, because that's how she feels inside of the scene. I don't want that other actor to think, that a boundary change? Or can we have that exciting moment where she doesn't like it, she wants to say she doesn't like it, and she wants to get to feel that. And then I'm not wondering if that's against the rules now because we'd agreed to push. And so I want Jen to be able to express her anger. I'm going to still push me. Now, if she actually was scared and off balance, and that's happened, she would just go, Mayor, I no longer want to be pushed. And all of a sudden, and then go back into the scene. And not why, and it doesn't get to be a whole emotional conversation.
Yeah.
It's just a simple shift, and the way we know it's real and not artistic is that they go through me. That means I now officially want someone to watch and make sure that we're all clear that this is no longer on the table for me. And we'll find out later it's because they had vertigo. Like, it doesn't have to be because something bad happened. It can be, oh, that activated something and I'm no longer confident I won't fall. Great, now we know.
What I love that's embedded in that is that when something happens, sometimes there's this sensation of like, now we have to stop everything and fix everything, the room is broken. Like, what I love that's embedded in there is like, oh, something happened and we're moving on. Like, a mistake is not an opportunity to build brick walls, it's an opportunity to create connection. I was vulnerable with you, how exciting. Now we've built trust because we understand more about each other. Like, it's this exciting moment of like, oh, now I know more about you and what we can do together. So mistakes or transgressions are actually an opportunity for learning and connection, as opposed to there's a kind of narrative out there of like, you've crossed my boundaries and now you are dead to me.
Yeah. Well, and also or that there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Like, or that there is a mistake. I mean, one of the most annoying things as a coach for me is when somebody decides what being a good partner is. I am not going to challenge you or make you uncomfortable or do anything because I want you to like me more than I want to live this moment. Snooze forever. And I say that like, one of my worst qualities is that I'm super easily bored. And so if it doesn't feel right, I'm exhausted by this. But if it's alive, it doesn't have to be, I don't care if it's good, because I don't even know what that is. That's not even a thing. I'm excited if it's true, and if it's free, and if it's embodied, then I'm there for days. And if we can learn more about ourselves and how to get access to ourselves, then it's exciting and alive. And if that alive is uncomfortable, and I'm terrified every time. The only way I can teach is if I say I don't know that I'm right, guys. I cannot promise you that I know what's going on or that I'm right, ever. I can promise you that I'll stay in the mud with you until we figure out what's true and what's real and make it okay. But anything else is like above my pay grade. I don't know how to do that. And I can't keep you all safe. I can't keep my kids safe. It's the most horrifying thing in the world is that I have to send her off to school. And I don't know what's going to happen on the subway, at the school, on her way home, at the party, I mean, I just have to hope that she has the confidence and the luck and the good fortune of having a good head on her shoulders and that she'll manage and that we'll talk and that it won't be, that she'll be able to communicate with me if she has questions or ideas. And I hope that for all of us in every scene, in every situation. I've had more injuries on set that have nothing to do with another person. I have walked through a rotting piece of deck. I've had the like a metal food truck thing fall on my head. Like, as I just happened to be walking under it while whoever leaned on the pole that was holding it up and it fell on my head. I've had like tons of things happen that are not anyone's fault. So no one can guarantee that I just had the wonderful fortune of being that person. So, and so you just have to figure out how to work with all of those things. But you can't write a big story about being a victim of circumstance. It's a life filled with so much possibility. And so, I don't know, I just think we can get very tempted to believe the story that we tell ourselves about why our body isn't available to us, and especially because our emotional muscles are on the inside. We can't see them. So we don't believe them. And that's the big mistake.
I love that, and I have so much questions about that. But I wanted to ask Tracey, when you're working with people, especially when they're bringing out their own stories to make work about, how do you help them feel that piece of being able to share things that maybe things that they are uncomfortable, that they're digging in the clay and they can't quite figure out how to share that stuff.
I think there's a couple things. I do set ground rules or guidelines at the beginning, and one is confidentiality. And I'm a realist about it, so I say, you know, whatever gets shared in the room stays in the room, whatever stories get shared. And then I say that the exception is if you hear something here that activates or triggers something in you and you need to process what you heard here, you can share it with a partner or a therapist or a best friend. But no names or locations or anything. All identity is scrubbed from the story. Also, I work with the idea of a buffet table. So we put, when you're creating an autobiographical show, you put all kinds of ideas on the buffet table, like your personal stories, different things you can teach, special skills, characters, all that stuff. So I'll say, you know what, share it. Err on the side of sharing, and then you can put it on the buffet table, and then you decide throughout the creative process to curate whether it goes in or not. So just because they've put it into the room and shared it doesn't mean it has to go in the show. But at least it's come out of that being, and it's material that we might work with.
How do you help people feel like they can be comfortable to share that stuff?
I'll share some of my own story that, you know, I lost a parent to suicide, and having done a show about it, I think helped me to literally survive it. A number of people in my close circle and family ended up going on medication and different things. Not that there's anything wrong with that at all, but I really attribute the fact that I took the material of what happened and I worked with it to change it into something that would help to heal me, but also that there was a gift in it for the audience. Because God forbid you leave the audience worse off than when they came in. And there was a funny as hell scene in there where my father, who's the one that died, we used to go on father-daughter weekends or outings. And so this last one that we did before he died, he took us to this place, and it turned out it was clothing optional.
Thanks, Dad.
And he said he wasn't aware of that when he booked
In no
it.
classroom ever should there ever be clothing optional. Just FYI.
Anyway, in the show I told a story about how we cooked dinner together and the three of us got really stoned. I don't know why I'm telling you this, but... And then dessert time came and we had nothing sweet. And I said, well, there was a tuck shop. You know what a tuck shop is, like where they have candy bars and stuff like that. And I said, I need to go get my tribe some sugar because that's what we needed. And then I don't know what came over me. Nudity is my worst fear. I stripped off all my clothes except my running shoes and walked across a dark soccer field to the tuck shop, stepped up the stairs. Inside was fluorescent lighting, like to be naked inside fluorescent, like the weirdest thing. And then I just was like, Mr. Big, oh Henry, Reese's Peanut and I walked back, and then I was like, I wonder if people are watching out of their cabin windows. And then I heard a rustling in the trees, and I was like, Dad, is that you? Like, I hope it's not you, Dad. And then I kept walking and I brought it back. And my father looked at me and he said, you're so high. And I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And so for me, I guess I show them you can take the worst thing you can imagine happening to yourself. And if you bring it into a space where there really is no judgment. We're just holding, I call it the delivery room. Like we're just holding a space where you can birth this fucking thing out of you. And my work is sort of where confession meets exorcism. And they're both about getting it out. So if I don't create a space where people feel they can barf up the demons or whatever is running around in them, then we have nothing. So I guess I go first. So I say, I don't want anyone in the class to be like a peeping Tom. If everyone else in the class is getting emotionally naked, I will take the person aside who's not and say, if you're going to stay, you have to get in the pool. Because we only feel naked when someone is sitting there for so I make sure we do it together.
Wow. I
Wow.
just now have an image of you forever now in your white runners.
We think you
Chantal, what do you think? We were going back to this question about boundaries and helping students create autonomy for themselves. And with young people in those kinds of institutions, it must be challenging to figure out how to give them the right to be able to say no, but also to allow them to scratch against that clay red wall, right?
Yeah. For me, it's the first thing that happens in the room with them is simply, here are sort of the expectations that I have in the room, which are very simple of like, if you're going to be late or absent, and I need you to tell me if something's not working for you. If this approach doesn't work, tell me, because it's not about me, it's about you. But then more importantly, telling them that the room is always available to shift. So if you have an ongoing access need, any kind of need, or if it's daily, let's just put it in the room to start so we can adjust the room so that you can do your best work. And that's the first thing that they learn. And I do tell them that they can, if it's a day where they can't, for whatever reason, they don't have to. And it can't be an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
And I'll call them out if it's an ongoing thing. But if it's a day, that's okay. Let's do something else that's more beneficial on that day for that hour or 45 minutes when it's one-on-one. So immediately telling them, and then if they're unsure of what that means, or if they look at you with that like, okay face, it's just giving them examples. You know, where it's like we can change the way we approach things. We can choose something different to work on to access whatever that emotion is. We can take something that you're working on already and explore how it's making you feel today versus another day. So just always giving them the ability to change what's right.
I love that. I also want to talk to you a little bit about, we talk a lot about students and how to give them accountability and agency, but I also, Meredith touched on it a little bit earlier, about teachers having their own boundaries and having their own things that make them feel safe, because, you know, we often do stuff that can be challenging and can be difficult, and so and students often get very passionate and run away with things, and so how do we create boundaries for ourselves that enable us to be in the space that we can help them? Want to start, Mary?
Yeah, I mean, I have boundaries listed. So I have a poster that I consider sort of a jumping off point, and so and Jen designed it for me. And so I have things that I'm not comfortable with, and I explain why. You know, I don't want you to take each other's underwear off or your own. It's a totally different medium, and I'm not coaching you there. I don't want you to make closed fists. I've seen fists go through walls, and I've seen them. Well, that's all I've seen. But I don't. When I see that start to happen, I stop watching your acting, and I start scanning the room for something else. So I have a list of things that I frame it, as I said, as my boundaries, so that I'm collaborating with you as the third person in the scene, versus sort of rules that you must adhere to in the place that is mine. I'm holding the room, yes, but I like to think of the collaboration differently, so that we're all equals in that collaboration. My job is different than your job inside of it, but this is what I need to do mine. What do you need to do yours? And then we have a check-in and a talk-back, which are sort of equally rated with the scene. And I need to know that you are taking care of yourself. You tell me how much we're playing with, and my job is to make sure that we maximize what we're playing with. You are responsible to tell me how much we're looking at. And then I ask you at the end to frame it in a way that I know that you're not going to go home and weaponize your awareness against yourself. So I ask you to be willing to share with me what your feelings are afterwards, and we just try to find the most constructive and productive way of looking at that truth that you've revealed to yourself, and that keeps me knowing that I don't have to worry about how you're doing with whatever you learned about yourself. So I always say the what is for art and the why is for therapy. So if you want to take that thing that you learned about yourself or revealed about yourself somewhere with a licensed professional, you should absolutely do that. That's an amazing thing to do. I can't unpack that with you because I don't know how to do that in a way that makes it safe. That keeps me feeling confident that I'm not steering someone in a direction that's not helpful, because I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do any of that. So that's how I keep myself safe. And I do need to know that you are able to metabolize whatever it is that came up in a way that you can walk out taking care of yourself. And that's your job.
I love that definition of the what and the why, because for a long time that's been a really big question for folks. Like, how do I help you process what's come up without being a therapist or a parent? Like, this is the big shift that
We're going to have a panel about that. Bruce is going to have a conversation about that. Whole topic about it.
Great. I won't say anymore, but I'll just say
But what do you do for you?
Well, for me, it usually comes because I'm teaching fights and intimacy most often when I'm educating. So for me, it usually comes around like expectations about content. Part of my contribution to the industry is like letting people know that when you are in my classes, it is, especially the intimacy classes, you're not a better actor because you're interested in simulating sex, or you're not a worse actor because you don't want to kiss anybody. But right for the longest time, we had this like, if you're really going to be a good actor, get ready to do whatever.
That's true. Absolutely true.
So what I do for my classes, and this is a very specific example in the vein of what I do, but I have a caveat that is in their syllabus, and I say it in class. This is not about achieving a specific choreography. This is about you learning a process of how to approach any choreography. So I'm not requiring you to learn how to simulate genital contact of any kind. I'm offering you an opportunity to learn a process of how to approach any intimacy choreography. And for folks who are interested in that, I will happily show you a demonstration. But also because in the working world, you're going to have a coordinator to help you with that. So that's not the best use of your time in the limited time we have in class. So for me, it's reminding them that success in this is learning process and encountering your boundaries and your interests, right? Some folks are really excited about doing things that have a lot of sex in them, and that's fantastic, and I want to support you in that. Some folks are like, I think hand-holding is the maximum that my characters will go, and I'm excited for you about that, because how exciting to know stuff about yourself and to get a sense of like, ooh, this is where my yeses are, and maybe that's a curiosity for me for later. So it really is about the focus on, it's not a choreographic execution, it's gaining curiosity, encountering yourself, and here are processes that you can use to encounter this material whenever you encounter it.
I thought about this question and my answer really surprised me. When I thought about my own boundaries, the word I came up with was equilibrium. That my boundaries are inside me, and trusting that whatever happens in the room, pardon me, I can keep my equilibrium. I'll give a quick example from, I was teaching in Totnes, England, which they say is an hour by train outside of London, but you travel 300 years. It's like, and I was co-hosting a one-person show festival there in a funeral home that was built centuries ago. There was a morgue. There were bodies in the fridge in the back. Yeah.
There were ghosts. Yeah.
Anyway, so I do an exercise called exaggerated self, where you take all of the aspects about yourself, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you put them on theatrical steroids. And then it's like a hot seat, and I interact with you. So this one guy, a really free spirit, he was just wearing jean shorts and nothing else, and he was just saying all these amazing things. And a guy in the audience who was sort of living as his exaggerated self yelled the F word at him as a slur for a gay man.
Oh.
And the whole room went, and they all sort of knew each other because they were from the local community. And mostly the women, but people turned on this guy sitting sort of in the audience, who was one of the class members, and they looked like they had like torches and pitchforks, and they started like going in on him. He didn't know all this stuff. You can't say that. You're a terrible person, that kind of thing. So I was like, okay, equilibrium. So instead of reacting, don't tell him not to say that, and you shouldn't have said that to him, I was like, what's the metaphor here? What's actually happening here? And what came to me was, we were like a bunch of children playing on a playground, and someone accidentally was like holding a rock or a stick and turned around too fast and smacked someone in the head. So that's how I dealt with that situation, where I felt like no one was at fault. This man really got into the improv. He thought he was reacting as his exaggerated self, and so we were able to calm it down. So I don't really set any boundaries. I mean, I work with adults, so they know they shouldn't punch or kick me. And that we shouldn't have, simulated genital contact. I can't even say it. It's the name of my band. So anyway, I think my work is different. So, but for me, it's finding equanimity, like a balance inside myself, where I have a distance between something that's happening and reacting on the good days. Thank you.
Tracey, what about you, Chantal?
I had two thoughts. At first I was like, I don't really set boundaries. And then I was like, oh, that's not true, I do. So two separate things. In the classroom, at the beginning of a term, I do a classroom agreement. And I ensure that I am part of the work. So as they're going around, and I usually do it with boards, so they write things, then we discuss them. And then I will say out loud, this was mine, and sort of explain it if it feels like it needs explaining. So while they are also setting up their boundaries, I'm sharing mine, so it becomes part of the boundaries of the whole room and how we work. So it's just integrated into the space that we create. And then what you were saying about not being a therapist. So I find that there's a lot of one-on-one conversations that want to happen outside the classroom or in the tutorial room. And when I give them that, we don't have to use this today, but there's also boundaries to what we're talking about. It's we can talk about, if you have questions about the industry or life as an artist, we'll talk about those things, not one-on-one personal things. And so I've found that I do small things yes, I would love to talk, and I have this much time. And it's a very clear week, so that we're not going for an hour. These are the things that I can talk to you and help you with. These are the things that I have no power, knowledge, education in, and so it's a very guided conversation. And when it goes past that, when it's oh, but my mother, blah blah blah, I was that's something that I hear what you're saying, and I understand that you're feeling something. It's not something that I can help with. But if this is impacting you in your classwork, maybe we can talk about ways that you can get back to that. So always guiding the conversation after telling them what I can and can't help with.
Yeah, and if I can share something, I think it's even if you set boundaries for yourself and you feel like you're doing everything you can to not only allow students to take risks and be brave, but keep yourself safe. Sometimes things can get misinterpreted, and sometimes they feel things that you've done to them. And that's unfortunately the nature, I think, sometimes of being in a position where you are the authority, or you're the person in the room that they're learning from. And having been in that situation myself, I can say that it's hard and it's a little painful to figure out how to have a student confront you about something that they think that you've done to them, even though you feel like you didn't do it. That's a hard thing, and I encourage you, whenever something like that happens to you, to reach out to other teachers, this community, in fact, of people, because it can be a very isolating feeling to feel like students have felt betrayed or hurt by you, even though those experiences may have been completely out of context, or you had the best intention that was interpreted in a different way. I feel like we hopefully move past a little bit cancel culture, because we were in there for a while, like a serious threat of cancel culture on teachers. It was very, very strong, very, very scary. Certainly when we did the 2023 conference, that was a major feeling in the room. That was height of cancel culture. I feel like it's relaxed a little bit, but I still feel like there are times that that's going to happen. And the way to get through it is to reach out to other people who have been through the work, can understand your experience as an educator. It's part of the reason we built this community. And we will always have resources and always be here for you. If that ever happens to you, you can always reach out to us and we will find a way to help you. But do you want to say something about that, Meredith?
Well, I feel like my job, what helps me in that sort of, I don't like to move on, as you know, I don't like to move on until I know that, so I take responsibility for my triggers. So in that room, people will say things and they'll get mad at me for my observation, and I will say, I think you're mad at me, and you're allowed. You get to feel all your feelings. And I will take care of myself later. So I sort of just acknowledge the true thing and go, I'm going to have feelings about that, I think. The person, Meredith, but the person holding this room can handle her triggers. So I'm not, I will unpack that later over a glass of wine or water, and I have my feelings about how fair I think that is, that I'm carrying that for you, but I will carry it. And I have infinite muscles to carry that for you in this role. And I can actually do that. I found that because I let myself have my feelings later, I feel like I have unlimited energy to accept that, because it doesn't mean that I agree or accept your experience of it. So I can hold your frustration and rage. And I always say again, I go to fitness. I have a trainer named Emily. She's been around for a long time. And I will often say, I think that's really fucking rude of you to ask me to do 12 burpees right now. And I thought we were friends. And I actually can get angry and think it's unreasonable or think that she's miscounting. And I can't tell you the names I call as I am doing those extra reps. And I'm grateful that she can hold my attitude. And so I try to think of it in sort of in that way, but I don't agree. And I ask everyone to take responsibility for their triggers. And so what I think keeps me safe is that I can tell that you're really triggered right now, and what can you articulate about that? So that you get your feelings. We're not deciding if they're right. We're just acknowledging that you're having them, because it's very obvious to everyone in the room that you are having a big feeling. And also, I don't know how to handle this. I'm just going to tell the truth the best that I can, and I'm not going to take it personally. And so you are going to have to get safe with yourself and the feelings that you're having, because we're not doing anything here that you haven't decided to do.
Meredith, I love what you're saying, because I would put in the words, reality keeps us safe.
Yeah.
So you are articulating the reality that's going on in the room.
And asking for agreement.
Yeah.
I feel like you're pretty triggered right now. I feel like you're angry. Are you? Yes or no? And so we'll work from, I'm saying the thing out loud. Mm-hmm. And I'm not mad at you for feeling how you feel. And then we'll take it from there. So I feel, I know there are people whose feelings are hurt, or who probably don't like me, and maybe I'm not the right coach for them, and that's totally okay. But I think I save myself from an unknown reality by insisting that we say it out loud in the moment, and then I'm not scared. I don't have to be your person, but you don't get to go home with a totally different version of reality, because we're going to agree to it, because I'm going to say each piece of it out loud, and I'm going to be okay with the fact that that's what's happening. And then you decide if that works for you in the future. And, you're signing up every month. The colleges are harder because they don't get to pick me. And I don't get to pick them.
Right.
And that feels really like that's a whole other thing that I navigated as best I could when I was in that situation. I find this easier for me because I feel like I have some autonomy, and I get to choose whether or not I have a space for you, and you get to choose if I'm the right person for you. But I think the best thing I would say about cancel culture is that's an accumulation of unsaid hurts. Mm-hmm. And then somebody gets to write a story about those unsaid hurts. And typically when we write stories and allow ourselves to write stories, I will stop talking, I swear.
Why would you do that? Why you're on the panel?
The stories that we write absolve ourselves of responsibility, and it's maybe my biggest pet peeve in the world. For you as an artist, for us as sharing a room, you don't get to have an experience, not use your voice, write a story where you had no power. Not in a room with me. We don't have to like each other or get along. It doesn't have to work out. But if you won't communicate with me, you need to take responsibility for not communicating with me. And I can't do anything after that. So I won't make you talk to me, but I won't turn it off. And that's the only part that can get complicated is I will stay in the mud until we've at least come to I understand what you're saying and you understand what I can offer.
We also, I will throw to Bruce in his panel, in his workshop, because I think one of the things we know about triggers is that in the moment is the best time to deal with it. Not after the fact, not later, but in the moment is the best time to talk about it, to problem solve it, and to work through it. So you don't go home and write a whole new story about what it is. But we can query Bruce about that later.
Yeah.
Siobhan, go ahead.
I just want to say what I love about like what both of you are saying is that part of the education you're giving in that moment is how do we be upholders and uplifters of a respectful workspace.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're including the how do we be colleagues in with your artistic practice. And I think that's something that a lot of people have great difficulty with. Like in days of year when like show up, be the actor, and then go away from here with whatever you're processing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now I think we're much more in a culture of, hey, guess what? We're workmates. It's like if anyone's heard like a tagging in, tagging out thing, is setting context. It's part of that. Like we are actors together, and now we're workmates. We're colleagues.
I implemented your tap in and tap out from taking your workshop a couple of years ago into our daily class. So every scene taps in and out because I found that to be so valuable. I also think if it's safe to say how you feel, like if I can actually hold the room and not take it personally, and if you actually don't have a consequence of saying it out loud other than one that you create for yourself, with yourself, then all of a sudden the onus is on you to communicate that well, because I'm actually not holding it against you, and I genuinely want to know you better, so I can figure out what language. I always think I'm a code switcher. Like I try to figure out what language you speak, and I try to speak your language. Are you a feeling speaker? Are you and also I think we have to read, as coaches, we have to read the room, and we have to read the body language, and so we can see when somebody's triggered, and if you can invite them from that place to put language to whatever is clearly happening for them, and you don't take it personally, then you can. Then I always say, it's a therapy thing, phrase that I got from therapy. And I always say if it's mentionable, it's manageable. So if we can talk about it, then it doesn't have to mean anything that it doesn't actually mean. And I think that protects us too from these stories in their head about whatever they can say that happened for them or to them. Because it's not happening to you, it's happening with you. Because everything we do together is a consented to shared conversation.
Yes, and removing the emergency.
There's no emergency.
There's no emergency. You're not going to die. The world is not going to fall apart. Your legs won't drop off. You're not going to die.
And you're having a conversation with yourself. I'm always facilitating a conversation that you're having with yourself. What is in your awareness about yourself right now? Can you handle that? How do we best handle what you have just learned about yourself? And how do we earn your own instrument and heart's trust so that more of you is available? And we can only do that by not letting anything that comes up be an emergency. And I don't want details about your life. I just want to know what's happening in this moment. I used to think I needed to know everything about you to be able to help you, and now I know so little. Because that's not relevant. And I want us to learn how to talk about what we need and what we are and what we feel without needing to disclose things that can be used against you later. And so now my practice is tell me how you feel, not why you feel it. And it's valid and it doesn't need an excuse or a reason. And if you don't want to kiss me because you had tuna fish, or because you have a cold sore, and if you don't want to kiss me because you don't feel like it, or you don't like kissing, or you don't want to kiss me, none of that mattered.
Yeah. We're going to take some questions, but I just wanted to say, we should end on a positive. I mean, I think boundaries can be hard, right? They can be hard to talk about, and they can be kind of nerve-wracking. So I want us to end on something that's really joyful. And I guess, why do you keep doing it? Why do you keep this? It's really hard to be an acting teacher. It's really hard. It's really challenging. It's got a lot. You got to write a lot of emails. There's a lot that you have to do as an acting coach beyond just the facilitation of helping somebody become an artist. Why do you keep doing it? Why, Chantal, do you keep doing it?
The ahas. The aha moments are so wonderful. Genuinely, that's every time that student discovers a tiny thing, or they conquer something that they weren't sure that they could do, or they break through and they're amazed, and everyone is just like, whether it's tiny or huge, it's just those moments that make them reinvigorated to keep going and to explore further and to know that this is like an amazing thing that we get to do. Just seeing that in them, that's all I need.
Yeah, I love that. What about you, Tracey?
I think for me, the whole purpose of helping someone tell their story is to get it up and out. And once a person has released a story, there's more space inside to go have more adventures. So I get to watch them face their worst fears, say the thing they're terrified of being judged or kicked off the island for, and then nothing happens. There's no dragon, the earth doesn't open, they don't catch fire, they just keep writing their show. And then they perform it in front of an audience, which is the final step to give the gift to the audience. Then after the audience shares with you what you received, and often they're coming up in tears saying, I thought I was the only one. And so it connects humanity to itself and gives them the freedom to then let go of that old baggage, the old stories, and go have a new adventure.
Nice.
Love it. Makes room for more adventure. What about you, Siobhan? Why do you keep doing it? Why?
I have a few reasons. So with teaching intimacy, one of the reasons is that there is still confusion as to what is intimacy direction and what's the role of an intimacy director. So my hope is that as I share more about at least my own perspective of what I think works, is to help keep the focus on intimacy direction as facilitating storytelling. I'm not of the opinion that we're the consent police. It's not about saying do less or you're wrong for doing it this way. It really is about what's the story you want to tell? What's the human experience you want to share with the audience? And how do we do that in a way that is expressive, that shares something to the audience that you feel confident doing, and maybe one day you'll feel comfortable. Maybe one day you'll be bored in this scene. That's what happens with fight intimacy choreography. You're going to get bored at some point, maybe, of just doing the movement. So for me, it's a little bit about continuing to help guide the growth and development of intimacy direction and coordination. With the performers in intimacy, similarly, I love that moment of like, oh, this makes sense, or I feel like I'm expressing something, or I understand more about this scene and this character because I understand something about how they are expressing themselves, either discovering something about themselves or like in connection with another human. There's that like, and those anticipatory moments of like, oh, can I, and the connection, and they're like, oh, we did, or they're like, oh, that was really disappointing. Like there's such a variety of things that can happen in moments of intimacy, and for stage combat, it's just I just love it so much. And
Talk about safety.
It's just so fun.
Yeah.
It's fun and it's joyful, and a lot of people think about the violent part of it. For me, it's like, how do I inspire people to be heroes in their own lives because of that? The physical empowerment they feel by being able to take action with something. Like, it's just so beautiful. So when I
look at you all. See, joyful.
So when I see other people who are like, there's a particular student I'm thinking of that's just so expressive with their voice and the vocal combat of it. Like, to me, there's such a fullness of life when you are empowered with that action. So when I catch those 1 or 2 people, or sometimes 5 people a year that are like, oh, this is something that I love, I'm like, let's chat. Let's play. That's my good.
Thank you, Siobhan. What about you, Meredith?
I just keep thinking about Larry. I had a student for 7 or 8 years, I think, who just died last month. And I got a call from his husband asking me to go to the palliative unit. We've never had coffee or hung out. I know him well. I care about him deeply. I would call him a friend. I would have happily had coffee with him. And so I got to spend some time with him days before he died. And I walked into the palliative unit at Sunnybrook, and he grabbed my hand, and he wanted to tell me about dying, and
Oh my gosh.
and how beautiful it was, and how it felt like a scene. And he said, as it got worse, and then it got better, and then it got worse, and then it got better. He was diagnosed maybe 5 weeks before he died, so it was just a really incredibly quick thing. And he was in class until that moment, and he was going to keep coming to class, except he couldn't walk, and so he stopped coming. But he was telling me about it, and he just said, that the first, he wanted to thank me, which is just an incredibly, profoundly generous act, to want me to know that I was important to him in the last moments of his life. And so he just said that it was like doing a scene. I don't want to go there, I don't want to go there, I don't want to go there. And then when he surrendered to what had to be, that all of this beauty and light and empathy and love opened up. And he wanted me to know that, and he wanted me to share that with his friends, the students. And he said, the last thing he said to me in class was that he wanted to know himself before he died. And I guess I feel like I get to help people know themselves before they die. And I watched somebody grateful in the last days of his life for how much he knew himself. And he wanted me to know that that was so important. And so I think that's what I
That's so true, Larry. It was a beautiful thing. We have questions. Do we have questions? Oh, Michael has a question.
It's a small one, and I do want to that's a beautiful story, and thank you. This has been a very informative and heart-opening panel, so I thank you all. One of the things that I find challenging, I love teaching because the work brings me joy. And as an actor, I don't get to do it often enough to get my full fix. But diving into scripts and working with actors, helping people make discoveries, learn things, realize things, see things, it genuinely brings me joy. At the same time, I'm a private coach, which means I work alone with actors. My safety is important. Many years ago, I started wearing a body camera because I'm the one who's least safe in the room. From accusations, assumptions, like you were saying, something will happen and the experience that somebody else walks away with is so drastically different than what I think happened. I am good at reading people and I am good at reading the room, and if I step on someone's toes and I feel the body language, I am able to address it in the moment. But what I find happens more often than anything else is if I even find out about a problem, it will be somewhere between 6 months and 2 or 3 years later. And what that does is it impacts my ability to trust the next 500 people that I work with. So I find myself protecting my heart from people who represent no danger to me because I don't know where the danger lies. And it's not a simple thing, but I wonder if anybody has any. We're only 7 minutes away from wrapping this panel. I wonder if anybody has any simple things, and I'm assuming that I'm not the only person in the room that has experienced something like this, so maybe there's something that's valuable for somebody else in there also.
Anyone want to take that one? I mean, I think it's a really hard thing that we do. I mean, I think it's really hard, and I think that we are. I'll throw to Bruce in a second. I think that it's difficult for us to learn to trust once we feel trust has been broken, but unfortunately that's kind of our job, is we have to get to a default where everybody starts at their place and everyone's an individual, you know. Bruce, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just something I will talk about.
Bruce Dow, everyone.
Well, and something you guys are trying. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, incredible panel.
It's recognizing the other. Something that happened in that period where we were trying to make everything safe is we all went, if you're okay, I'm okay. If you're not okay, I'm not okay. We have to recognize that we can have the same experience of something, and you have a very different experience than I do, and mine is my own, and yours is your own. And when we get caught by, I'll be okay if you're okay, you have to change so I'm okay, I'm out of myself. So the thing I would talk to you about is how do I recognize that incident happened, they are saying those things, that was not my experience, where is my safety for myself? It's having the location of your own control in yourself rather than, and so much of our industry is, do they want to hire me? Are they doing a show that I might be casting? Will my student be up for the right thing? That's all external, which we can't do anything about. But a huge thing I'll talk about later is recognizing the other. You and I can sit down at a table, eat from the same plate of food, and we can leave the restaurant, and you know that's the worst damn meal you've ever had, and I say it's the best meal I've ever had. Both are true.
Both are true.
Both are true, and I don't have to fix you, and you don't have to fix me. And if you are doing practically going around saying Bruce is an idiot and doesn't know how to eat, you're wrong. But anyway, this is another thing. But it's recognizing the other. We don't have to have the same experience, and you can be okay, and I can be okay, and I can disagree with you and be myself. What do I need to do to make myself be safe?
Love that, Bruce.
That's
Thank
it.
you. Thank you so much.
I just thought of how I make myself safe. I keep asking you to tell me what story you're telling yourself about this experience. So I would probably build in some checkpoints during that session. Like what's happening for you right now? How are you feeling? What do you need? Because I had a wonderful acting teacher she wasn't my teacher, she's a friend of mine, but someone who teaches at a college in BC, and she also directed one of their short night shoots. And she said, I was the worst director I've ever had. As I'm working with my students and I'm doing this night shoot, I'm panicking about location, and I just want them to just do the fucking thing, because we got to get it done. And we're losing, and she was like, I'm giving notes that I would hate to get.
Yeah.
And so I always say, imagine that director needs a different vocabulary. I don't think you think that. So I always say to him that we need to say in our own mind, I don't think that word means what you think it means. And then find a way to say, can you say that a different way? Instead of that, or screw you, you're the worst director ever who's saying the mean thing, because their priority list is entirely different. And they need to communicate, and maybe they're not good communicators. Maybe they're often not good communicators. Instead of us thinking it's, the burden is on us, and also poor us, because that's just the most. So you're teaching them, you're coaching them, and you're one-on-one, and they're going to have a triggered experience, which is why I've built in talkbacks. And in my talkback, I've set it up so that they can't speak about what they didn't like until they're calm. And so they have to start with what they like, and they hate it until they don't, but they hate it for a long time. And then the second they have figured out what was successful, and the second their nervous system is calm, then tell me everything else. And we'll come up with a frame and a constructive way to look at that thing. But there's nothing useful in that. So it sounds to me like maybe the danger is that when they're in a triggered place and they're unhappy with what they did, they're feeling attacked because we feel like victims to our own thing. And so I would wonder if it might be helpful to ask them to articulate during it what they're feeling and what's happening and what they need. And then at the end.
Thank you. We were running out of time. I just want to make sure, is there any Zoom questions? Lucas? Huh?
Not for this one.
Thank you very much. Any, yes?
Anyway, I'm selfish. I found one that I need help with. So you mentioned the voyeur in the room, and I tend to fixate on that person. I've noticed a pattern in myself that I fixate on the one who's the least participatory and probably the most blocked, or whatever word you want to use. I'm trying to come up with a word that would be negative, but and then in different systems, like when I was at a conservatory program, I could just tell the administrator would talk, let's talk about your thing. And now I'm at a college system where that doesn't happen. And so sometimes I don't know how to deal with someone who's watching with judgment in the room and not participating. And especially in the college, like I always go, why are you here? And that's unhelpful, right? Like that's an unhelpful question for me to go, like, why it's so unhelpful. So I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm going to ask you this question because I'm sure everybody's had this experience, and I don't quite know what to do. I've been teaching for 30 years. I still don't know what to do with that person who I can't unlock, and it just drives me a little crazy. I lose sleep over it. Get right here.
Can I just piggyback on this a little
Yeah.
bit? Just really quickly, because one of the challenges is also learning outcomes out of college or university. You have to grade, right? So as opposed to a private student where you're like, maybe I'm not the person for you, right?
Yeah.
There is actually something that the student does need to do, and we can try on top, but at a certain point, and you can try different.
And you don't want to harm.
No.
Right? So you're like, and I'm not, and I do. I begin with, I'm not a therapist, and I'm not your mother.
Yeah.
I say that right away so that they know those aren't my skill sets. And I'm a good mother, but not to them. And so it's yeah, that's.
This is a fascinating question. I love this question because this is a really specific thing about universities and colleges too, which I think is really challenging, but we do see it in private as well.
I would say approach with genuine curiosity. Like, this is an amoeba and you've never quite seen it acting this way before. and share observations. So I might say, I've noticed that you're not speaking very much, or I noticed that you're kind of hanging back. Please tell me what's going on. Like, what's going on in your mind, what's going on in your body, and how can I help? Because I think you will benefit so much more from taking that risk and putting you in the room. So genuinely be curious. You've got to put your own reactions behind you and think, whatever those things you said, I'm not the teacher, or why are you wasting your money? Genuinely curious and observations. And just see if you can create a space where they feel safe, like something is not kosher, something's holding them back. So you need to create a space where they'll feel safe to tiptoe and tell you a little bit.
Right.
Go ahead, Chantal.
Something that I did, again, depending on the class, of course, but I had students write an artistic statement right at the beginning, and then we reevaluated at the end, so seeing what shifted, if anything shifted, what they're learning, and basing it on the kinds of arts that they were interested in, along with what are their core values, what are the kinds of things they envision themselves seeing, and had them just write a paragraph, and then they would share them. Some would read it out loud, or they would just hand it in, and it allowed insight, because then I could go back to them, and I could use what they were passionate about, what they were interested in, or what they thought they were interested in, and ask them questions coming from that specific place, so that they were engaged in a way that connected to them. Did it mean that they lost the whatever face? Not necessarily, but they started speaking from a place of something where they felt either confident or interested, and it helped with some of them.
I would just add one last thing, that I often have students grade themselves, and in a similar fashion, even in the college system and the university system, I did this, they reveal things about what their own blocks and their own stuff, and they actually often give themselves a worse grade than I would have, which I find fascinating. But it's a very telltale thing about actors, right? We're almost always harder on ourselves than anybody else in the room. And so I would say there's opportunities there to open a dialogue that maybe is not face-to-face, but in a written form, because that often gives them the power and the courage to be able to say things they can't say out loud. We have to end this panel because we're already over. I want to thank everybody. Hopefully they'll be around and you can talk to them more about all these things, but also talk to each other about this stuff, because everybody in this room has something to share about it. Have a nice break, and then go to your workshops.